All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome to the Gaily Impact, our financial empowerment uh, session, which really is just about learning the secrets of wealth. And I have with me Kim Scouller. She is a renowned women's financial literacy advocate, the writer of How Money Works for Women, and myself, Dr. Helmut Love. What I want to get across to you is that we are both parents. I'm a father. Kim is a mother, and we are doing some loving parenting by inviting you here to support you. And so I just wanted to switch to our next slide and just say this event is sponsored by the Gaily Impact. The Gaily Impact is a house of love. And so at our house, we really have three core tenets to what we do. We empower people as individuals. We believe in strengthening relationships, and we champion our seniors. In our house, we believe in love. We believe it's the answer, it's our source, and it's our destiny. We believe that no human is unloved. Even our seeming enemies are loved. So no one's kicked out of our house. And we believe every human is worthy of prosperity, spirituality, and connection. And so today we're really focused in on this personal empowerment concept. And in this next slide, I want to just explain that, look, unless we show tremendous love to ourselves, how are we going to create tremendous impact for good on earth? I think a lot of people, and especially in the LGBTQ community, as well as others in the human community, really want to do good while we're here. But the story starts with you. And so right now, this is about you, and this is about your story. And it's actually, in my belief, it's the most important story there is. Because and I just want to clarify a few things about wealth before we transition to Kim. And this slide basically speaks to what wealth is. I think, Kim, we have one more slide. There we go. Okay, it's a little cut off. So why are we here? We're here to teach you the secrets of wealth, right? So that's what you're here to learn. Why? Again, because we love you, because we actually care about your wealth. We want you to know how money works in the system. A lot of us talk about changing the system, but you need to generate money in the system so you will, number one, enjoy your life. And number two, promote the love you believe in to future generations. That's how the whole history of Earth has gone. And so the faster we get to the money game, the faster we get to the changing and making a long lasting difference. And a lot of groups get late to the money game. So the faster we get there, the better. And just remember that wealth is multifaceted. It is your physical health. Without physical health, you have no wealth, right? You just don't, you can't even appreciate the wealth that you have. Self-love, your relationships, the creation, what you create, how you serve others, your money, and your legacy are all facets of your wealth. And today we're here to teach you about financials and money so that you have the right knowledge to create the kind of life and legacy you want. With that, Kim. Oh, by the way, I was going to ask you, do you want to be more wealthy, Michael?
Um, there's nowhere to go but up. So yeah.
Right? And it's something like just saying it, like, I want to be more wealthy. That's a good thing. That's a self-loving thing. We don't often just say, but we get to be wealthy. All right,
Yep.
Kim, and I'll interject questions as we go. So,
Well, and Helmut, words have power. And, when you say these things out loud that you want to bring into your life, you help manifest it by just putting that energy out there, putting those words out there. So one of the things that I'm a big proponent of is that we talk about money, which has been kind of a taboo subject for a lot of people. Men, women, kids, LGBTQ, I mean, all groups share this kind of taboo about money. And it's just time that, because it's so important for all of us, as Helmut just talked about, all of those aspects of wealth, it's important for all of us to know about, to talk about, to ask about, to be curious about, and to to help manifest and create in our lives. So I like to start, I love quotes. I love great quotes. And so I love this quote by Benjamin Franklin that an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Whatever it is that you're interested in learning more about, today we're going to focus on wealth and financial literacy. So we start with kind of, where did you learn about money? So, Michael, where did you learn about money?
Oh God. um, I observed my parents arguing about money on a constant basis. And it was the same argument over and over again. It never changed.
Yeah, it was the same thing for me. It was, and I think for a lot of people, we learn about money from our parents or whoever raised us. And we hear a lot of things about money as we're growing up that kind of lead to this scarcity mindset. Like in my family, my dad's favorite saying was, money doesn't grow on trees. And then they'd say, pinch your pennies or save for a rainy day. My mom's favorite saying was, we can't afford it. And, would be in the grocery store line and they'd have all the candy there. And I'd be like, Mom, please, can I have this candy bar? And she'd say, oh, no, honey, we can't afford it. And I mean, what does that mean? We can't afford a candy bar. And so I had like this no sense for what was enough. What did we have? A candy bar is too expensive. I had no baseline to judge anything by. And so a lot of people grow up with the scarcity mindset. And we believe that if you've got knowledge, if you really seek it out and become a student of money, of wealth, of learning how to create more in your life or create what it is you want in your life, that you can really kind of have this abundance mindset when it comes to money and wealth, kind of undo those things that we learned as children. Now, unfortunately, the story isn't much better in adulthood. A recent study on financial literacy found that only 30% of people in the world are financially literate. And then you can see the statistics on the screen about what we're experiencing in the United States. A quarter of people can't afford or could not cover a $400 emergency. They'd have to put it on a credit card. A lot of students, almost half, aren't making payments on their student loans. The average credit card debt balance is over $9,000, and households will pay almost $38,000 in interest to cover that $9,000 debt by paying minimum payments over a 30-year period. A third of adults have zero retirement savings. So more than ever, we need to understand how money works, because the lack of knowledge can really affect us. So how does financial illiteracy cost us and the people we love, the people we care about most? Well, we may end up paying higher premiums for insurance, or we may have to use a credit card for an emergency expense. Maybe because we have a low credit score, we're paying more interest on our debts, or we're only making the minimum payments on our credit card debts, which causes us to pay a lot more interest. About 78% of people in the United States are living paycheck to paycheck, and they don't know how to get out of that rut. Or some people are waiting to set aside money for retirement, and they're waiting later in life. Oh, when I get that tax refund, or I get that promotion, or I sell that business, whatever it is, then I'll save for retirement. But it may be too late, unfortunately. So we're seeing, a lot of ways that the lack of knowledge about money impacts us every day and carries on into our future. But it's not our fault. We weren't taught this in school. We learned from our parents learned from their parents. And now only, 23 out of 50 states Before COVID, it was a lot less than 23, but now about half the states require high schools to offer a personal finance course in order to graduate, which is great news. I mean, it wasn't available when I was in high school. I don't know, Michael, whether there was a course like that available for you when you were in school. Helmut, how about you?
No.
Very basic one, very basic one. But I think even in Georgia, I think there is a course and there's an optional section of a course, and it's dependent upon the school district as to whether or not they're going to pick up the course or not.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of like quick pro pros and interesting things about this.
Yes. So unfortunately, there's a lot of DIY out there when it comes to money and a lot of information. But I mean, how do you figure out which is good information or not? So I really love that Helmut's put this program together so we can help kind of focus in on what are some basic concepts. One of the first very basic concepts that I talk about is the power of compound interest. And it's real simple. It is interest earned on interest. Now, there are two different kinds of interest. There's simple interest, interest earned on principal only, or compound interest, which is interest on principal and interest at the same time. So let's look at what an example might be. Here's a simple interest example. Over a 50-year period, you take $1,500, it's earning 9% a year, simple interest. At the end of 50 years, because it's interest only on the $1,500 each year, your amount of money only grows to be a little more than $8,000. But what if it were compound interest? What if instead of it just being interest on 1,500, it was interest on 1,500 plus the 9%, and then 1,500 plus the 9% plus the 9% every year? Over a 50-year period, that would grow to be, sorry, my screen is a little blocked.
Yeah. 132,000.
Okay. Thank you. There we go. Okay, I had to move the pictures. 132,000. So you can see the really huge impact that compound interest has over simple interest. Now, examples of simple interest that we encounter are, sorry, there we go. Now I'm going to go back. Examples of simple interest that we encounter are your car loan. Your car loan is a simple interest loan. Your mortgage, if you're paying all of the interest each month, your mortgage is a simple interest loan. Now, if you're paying a variable interest and sometimes it doesn't charge you all of the interest, that's an example of compound interest. Another huge example of compound interest is credit cards. That's why credit card debt grows to be so high, because it's interest on interest on interest.
So it balloons. So it balloons, right?
Yeah, it balloons and it gets kind of overwhelming and out of control because compound interest causes things to grow exponentially. Simple interest causes things to grow by addition. Compound interest, things grow by multiplication.
Michael, was that new for you? It was new for
Yeah.
me when I first saw this. I was like, I didn't know the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Or at least I didn't think of it when I was buying something to think about that word and ask.
Well, I always have been terrified of credit card debt. So I just have, that's one thing that I've been very cautious about and not allowed myself to do is to
Yeah.
put something on a credit card.
Good for you.
That is really good. So many people get caught up in that kind of bottomless pit of compound interest of credit cards. So it's really good that you've been paying attention to that. So the next concept I wanted to talk about after compound interest is the time value of money. And there are kind of like three action steps You start now, you save regularly, and you be patient. Even if it's a small amount of money, I work a lot with people who are kind of living paycheck to paycheck, and we talk about just saving $1 a day or $5 a day. If you do that on a regular basis, if you're just consistent about it and you're patient about the growth, you will see compound interest kick in and that amount of money start to really grow. Now, here are two examples. Now, when I first saw these examples, I didn't believe it, but I did the math and this does work. So we've got two people, Sarah and George. Sarah, she starts saving when she's 22. She's, just really a go-getter. She sets aside $4,000 a year and she does it 8 years in a row. When she turns 29, she stops. So all she started with in her savings was 32,000. Now that 32,000, invested at 9% until she retires at age 67 would grow to be 1.4 million. Now George, on the other hand, was a late bloomer. He didn't start until he turned 30. He did the same thing as Sarah. He set aside $4,000 a year, but he did it every year for 38 years until he retired at age 67. Because George got that late start, his amount of money, he invested over $151,000 compared to Sarah's 32,000. Because he waited that 8 years, she had that 8-year head start on him. His amount of money, even though it was larger, it only grew to be 1.3 million. So it's a really startling example of how starting early it's so huge. And when I talk to young people, I tell them, however much you can save now, put it aside, because that amount of money will have to be much larger when you get older. Now, it's never too late to start, but the earlier you start, the better. So what would that look like? Well, if you're in your 20s and you wanted to have $1 million by the time you turn age 67, you'd have to set aside $113 a month. If you were in your 30s, that would be around $282 a month. If you're in your 40s, it's $731 a month. If you're in your 50s, it's over $2,000 a month. And if you're in your 60s, it's over $8,000 a month. So it's really important to start as early as you can. Now, again, it's never too late to start, but the earlier you can start, the better.
Which is why it's so important to teach people young, right? Which you think is like, I don't know about you, Michael, but I think of that as so counterculture to like sort of like living your life, enjoy your time. And then a lot of people are spent in their 20s not saving at all.
Yeah.
And 30s and 40s.
Right.
I was listening to an economist today, and he said something interesting but kind of funny. He said, you think it's YOLO, but it's actually yo-yo. YOLO is you only live once, and so many people are you only live once, and so we're going to experience life. But it's yo-yo, you're on your own. And so you gotta like set, you've got to like set these priorities.
Oh, I thought it was you're only young ones.
Oh, he said The Economist changed the whole thing. Yo-yo, you're on your own.
I love that. It's really quite smart. Yeah.
So yeah, economists can be funny. So back in the olden days, you used to like receive an inheritance from your grandparents or your parents or some other loved one in your life who passed away. But because we're all living longer, which is great, and, those of us living longer, we've got more medical bills and we've got long-term care expenses. There is less opportunity for younger generations to inherit from older generations. And so when I'm working with clients, I talk about that. What legacy do you want to leave behind for the young people in your life, but also if you're an older person, what are you doing to prepare for living longer, for having medical bills, not being as healthy, and for your long-term care needs? So it's kind of a double-edged sword for the young person and also for the older person. And so it really opens up this opportunity for a lot more conversations.
Mhm.
So the third basic concept I'm going to talk about is the rule of 72. So the rule of 72 goes like this. You take the number 72 and it's always the number 72. You divide it by your interest rate or your rate of return, and that tells you how many years it's going to take for your money to double. So say your money is in a bank account earning 1% a year. 72 divided by 1 is 72. The money you've got sitting in that bank account will double in 72 years.
Is that
So,
simple or compound interest? Does it matter?
well, you're just looking at, I think it's more of a simple interest formula
Okay. Okay.
because it's just looking at, no, I take that back. It is compound interest because
Okay.
it continues to compound because the higher the interest rate or the higher the rate of return, the exponentially more
Makes
money
sense.
we're going to have.
Okay. Okay.
So if you're earning 3% because you're in a CD or a money market account, 72 divided by 3 is 24. Your money's going to double every 24 years. Say you're getting a little bit more, 6%. 72 divided by 6 is 12. Your money's going to double every 12 years. Say you're earning 9%. 72 divided by 9 is 8. So your money's going to double every 8 years. And then maybe your money's earning 12%. 72 divided by 12 is 6. Your money's going to double every 6 years. Now, when I go through this example, people will say, well, Kim, where am I going to get 9 or 12%? Well, over the period of time that the S&P has been tracked, over the 100 plus years, it has delivered somewhere between 9 and 11% a year. Now, the last 2 years, the S&P delivered 25% each year. And so it's out there. You just got to be smart about it. I encourage people to be very deliberate, to not chase trends or try and stock pick. Work with a financial professional to help guide you on what's right for you, because no one, not even the best economist, can predict the market. The economist I listened to today was pointing out what the projections were for the economists over the last 3 years, and they not only did they get it wrong, they got it wrong by a mile. So nobody can predict what's going to happen with the market. Right now, with the new administration and talk about tariffs and drilling for fossil fuels and things like that, there is no clear understanding of what's going to happen in the market. And so I always recommend people work with a financial professional to put in place those things that are going to fit your situation, but not fit the craziness that's happening in the market. So let's look at what banks are paying. The majority of money out there is in savings accounts, money market accounts. And right now, the average savings account is paying 0.15%. So 72 divided by 0.15 is 480, meaning your money will double every 480 years. So it is multiple generations from now that will experience that double.
$2.
Yeah. So, but let's look at what the banks are getting. So the banks will give us 0.15%, but they're so quick to give us a credit card. The average interest rate right now is around 22.4%. So what is the bank earning? 72 divided by 22.44 is 3.2. So the bank's money on the credit cards is doubling every 3.2 years. And so we really have to get smart about all of these financial concepts, compound interest, time value of money, but the rule of 72 in particular, because when it works against you, it really works against you. Now, what we do is we sit down with someone and we talk to them about the basic concepts and we apply them to kind of putting together a financial plan. The components of a solid financial plan are what we call the 7 money milestones. Starting with financial education to proper protection, making sure you have an emergency fund in place, taking a look at managing debt, your cash flow, what's coming into your household and what's going out, building wealth, and then protecting your wealth. I would typically go through all 7 milestones, but tonight I'm just going to go through the last 2. So, building wealth, in addition to just accumulating wealth and applying compound interest, time value of money, the rule of 72, to building wealth, I talk to clients about what are some of the things that are going to be obstacles to you to building your wealth. So the 4 threats are procrastination, inflation, losses, and taxes. We all are, we're all guilty of procrastinating, especially when it comes to planning, financial planning, or saving money for the future. But it's really something, especially at the beginning of the year when you're, geared up for making change and setting goals for the year. It's really good to just get started, even with a small amount. Now, inflation, especially in the last 3 to 4 years, has had a huge impact on our ability to grow wealth. Now, on average, inflation is about 2.8% a year. It's been that way for the last 100 years. But in the last 3 or 4 years, it's been significantly higher. I think a couple of years ago, it was up to 9 or 10%. Now, if you apply the rule of 72 to the inflation rate, it'll tell you how many years it's going to take for the cost of goods to double. So say the inflation rate is 2.8%. 72 divided by 2.8 is 25.7. So every 25, 26 years, the cost of goods is going to double. Now, are you going to be able to afford that if, say, you're going to retire in 30 years? Do you have enough money to pay, twice as much for goods in retirement than you're paying today? Now, what about inflation a couple of years ago when it was 10%? 72 divided by 10 is 7.2. So every 7 to 8 years, the cost of goods was doubling under that inflationary scheme, which is why the Fed jumped in so quickly, to kind of help lower inflation. Now, I still feel it at the grocery store. I think at the gas pump, it's a little bit better. I don't know what you all have been experiencing, but I haven't really noticed, except for eggs. Eggs are cheaper than they were, but it seems like everything is still really expensive.
I agree. I think everything is. I think we see that in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard not to notice that.
So as you're building wealth, you've got to keep inflation in mind. And then the impact of losses. So if you lose 50% on a $10,000 investment, how much would you have to get back in order to just break even? Now, you would think I lost 50%, I'd have to make back 50%. But it's not. It's 100%. If you lose 50% in 1 year, like some people did back in 08 and 09, you have to make 100% in order to just get back to even. So there are things you can do. Diversifying. There are financial vehicles that can help you lower or mitigate the risk of loss. But it's something you've got to keep in mind as you are building your wealth. And then the last thing to think about is the impact of taxes. How is this going to affect me in terms of, the money I get to use in retirement and the money I'm going to be able to leave as a legacy for people I leave behind? When we talk about taxes and money, we talk about it in terms of, the government's always going to get their money. It just depends on when you're going to pay the taxes. Are you going to pay it up front? Or are you going to pay it on the back end? If you pay it up front, we call that paying taxes on the seed. Say you want to invest $10,000. That's money that you earned. You're already paying income taxes on it. So it's already that $10,000 has already been taxed. If you pay taxes on the seed in a particular kind of vehicle, then all of the growth, the harvest, is tax free. Or you can choose to pay taxes on the back end. So the seed isn't taxed. You don't pay taxes on that 10,000, but all of the growth is taxable, when you retire. Now, what are examples of that? IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, 457s. The amount of money that you contribute is not taxed. All of the growth grows tax deferred. In retirement, when you start taking distributions, you're taxed 100% on those distributions. Examples of paying taxes on the seed, but not the harvest. A Roth IRA is an example of that. Or permanent life insurance policies. That's an example of that. So it's important as you build your wealth to keep taxes in mind, in addition to losses and inflation. And then I want to talk just a little bit about protecting your wealth. You spent all of this time and energy building your wealth, creating something for yourself and for the people you love. What are some of the things that you need to do in order to protect your wealth and protect your loved ones? Well, there are 4 basic documents that you need to put in place. A will, which identifies who you want to carry out your wishes, if you've got minor children, who you want to serve as guardian, and how you want your estate distributed. A financial power of attorney identifies the person you want to handle your financial transactions, like paying taxes, in the event you're not able to. Maybe you're sick, you've got a cognitive impairment, or maybe you're traveling outside of the country. Then there's an advanced healthcare directive or a living will. This is where you kind of state what your healthcare wishes are in the event you're not able to state that yourself. And you identify the person you want to make those decisions for you. And then the last document is a HIPAA release, which gives your healthcare agent access to your insurance and medical records so they can make well-informed decisions for you. Oftentimes, a lot of people do not have these documents in place. Where whatever situation you're in, you need to have these documents in place. And I don't know, Michael, whether you've thought about this, whether you already have that taken care of.
No.
Okay.
I didn't know that there were all these options, first of all.
Right.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, these are really important documents for you to put in place. And I would have to say that I work with a lot of people in the LGBTQ community because it becomes really important for them in particular to state their wishes, to make sure that the people who they trust are going to be making the decisions for them if they're not able to. Now, there's one more kind of optional document I'm going to talk about, and that's a trust. Not everybody needs a trust. You typically need a trust if you've got minor children, if you've got maybe special needs beneficiaries, if you've got beneficiaries who live outside of the country, if you want privacy, because a will becomes a public document once it's filed for probate, but a trust is not filed in probate. If you have real estate in more than one state, or maybe you have a very large estate and you need a trust to help mitigate some of the estate taxes. Those are the kinds of situations where I would recommend somebody put a trust in place. Now, the other thing that I would say is if you live in a state that has difficult probate, Florida, New York, Chicago, California, Texas. These are states where probate can be long and expensive. I recommend you consider putting a trust in place because it can help you avoid probate. And it can really be a blessing to your loved ones to have that document outside of probate.
Mhm. That makes sense.
So, a lot of people think estate planning is too expensive or too time consuming, but it's so important to do for your loved ones and for you and your estate. And there are a lot of online options that will fit any budget. Or if you need more customized planning, you can go to a local attorney. If you're in the state of Georgia, I'm a licensed attorney in Georgia. I help a lot of clients with estate planning here. But it is a real important thing to make sure that you've checked off on the 7 money milestones. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Helmut.
Right. So that was some of the material will give you, Michael. You can like see those again. And it's thank you, Kim, for that. It says my connection's unstable, so I'm sorry if I'm coming in and out at all. There's three things that we basically give individuals coming into this. So there is a financial empowerment guide that kind of goes through some of these factors and some specific financial advice depending on your level, right? Beginner, mid, kind of advanced. There's a money book, and there's actually a couple different money books. And if one of them interests you particularly, you can go into the link that I shared and click in and order one. And then the last option, the last link there, Michael, is a safe, and I say safe because there's a lot of emotion we get around money. There's a lot of feelings that we get around money. There's a lot of insecurity at times, just because it is exactly like Kim said, a topic we don't always talk about. And so a safe 30-minute consult to just sit and really talk through where you're at, where you'd like to be, put your plan together, and get some insight from individuals who do this. Make it easy.
No judgment.
Right. So any questions, Michael? Thank you so much. This was sort of like just a way to kind of expose you and expose others to sort of like what this world is.
Yeah, that was it was a lot to take in, but thank you. Like there were a lot of things there that I just not thought about, and I'm wondering, okay, so some of those slides, are they in the free guide? Or no?
So some of them are the books are really great. And then there's the books are on a website, How Money Works, where some of this material's there, where you can actually see those components. Kim, any other thoughts?
Yes. We can definitely provide you with the slides if you would like that. And certainly we can get a book to you so you can see a whole lot more detail than what we covered.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you. Yeah, there were a couple of the slides I was like, stop, wait, I want to write this down. Yeah.
It's like, it's these are things that we're not taught. And Helmut and I just feel so strongly that we need to show everyone because it's not rocket science. But if you knew about the rule of 72 or how compound interest will affect you, or if I knew in my 20s what I know now about the time value of money, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I think it's I'm going to go back to sort of like the element of it's almost like our culture, and I'm talking now a little bit more LGBTQ culture, is teaching us the exact wrong thing. Like it's like, let's be frivolous and fun and spend when you're young. And that's actually the complete opposite to us maintaining our position in the world. And actually, not just maintaining, gaining it, right? To truly gain the position we'd like to have, um, you have to have wealth, right? And so, and to enjoy our lives.
Yes. And can I say I've also observed the opposite of that. I've observed that often a fixed income, or like somebody who's retired early, like I had this friend last year who was he retired really early, and so he had very much a fixed mindset about money. Um,
Mhm.
and I could see how it was impacting him in a way that's like, oh my God, I don't want to be in that position. I don't want to feel like I'm stuck financially at a certain age because I've been so rigid about money. Been so, so I'm like, it's my desire to just find that middle, that moderate,
Yeah.
but with this wisdom that you brought. So,
Yeah. There's another component of it which gets into the other things that I teach, which is really around entrepreneurship. We talked a little bit about your passions and sort of creating business around it, because that's the other component, right? Is like, basically, if we live till we're 90, right? If that's the average age, right? Then being 45 is like midlife,
yes.
right? So, like, you can still go create, you can still go make a whole business happen, right? If you think about there are a lot of businesses that people started and really didn't really start until their 50s or
Yeah.
their 60s. It's a little bit on the other side, but knowing this kind of makes you go, bing, like, what do I want to do while I'm here? Where do I want to land? And what do I want, like, to be able to impact? Because it's not kids for people. A lot of times in our community, it might be a cause, or I really want to help others like me, or I want to help other seniors like me, right? Because when we're a senior, all of a sudden we empathize a lot more with that position in the world. So,
Yes. Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm empathizing more.
well, yeah, we're not there yet. I'm talking that like, yeah, but
No, but what I'm trying to say, okay, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, um, like it was when I was in my 20s and 30s, I really didn't feel like I connected with my own age group. And so now I find myself in my mid 40s now, and uh, I guess I don't know if I necessarily identify with my current age group. Maybe I identify more with like a little bit older in some ways. Anyway.
yeah. Well, at the end of the day, knowing how money works is what really matters. And
Yeah.
at least for this one component, and I feel pretty strongly that sharing this kind of information, we can give it to more and more younger people.
Right.
So important.
Yes.
It could change a generation.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I mean, if I had this information when I was in my 20s, like I would be a very different person. Probably.
Yeah.